Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday night, and that means it's time for Tuesday Night Tactics as we analyse yet another defeat as Fulham beat Leicester 2-0 at the King Power. But before we go through the analysis, good evening to you all, and I'm joined by the host of the most. It is, of course, Locks. Good evening, Locks. How are you tonight?
Cheers, mate. Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. Every day as the week goes on, I kind of get less and less annoyed, and then by Saturday, Sunday, the football happens again. I'm like, oh, I'm annoyed again. So it's like how the footballers have recovery, right? I have my recovery from what I've seen on the weekend, and then the next game comes along, and I've got to do recovery all over again. So yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, Andreas. We're joined by Denmark's finest. How are you tonight?
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, guys, for being a bit late here. Time just flew away with the football manager save with the boys there. So got a bit too carried away doing transfers. Something Leicester aren't that proactive at doing. So, I had to do it in game to remember what it feels like to get a new player in.
You get that feeling. Well, let's just go through the comments. Say good evening to everyone. Good evening, Kunal. Good evening to Jeff. And yes, I want to say a massive respect for anyone that tunes into this show. I was saying to Lux that in the Steve Cooper era, it's like just bring in another manager so I don't just have to keep looking at terrible performances and defeats. But hasn't quite turned out that way. Evening to Clibbo, one of our best callers. It'll be interesting to see what you make of this. Evening to Andreas, Ray as well, to Easy and to Peter and to anyone else that is tuning in. Right. Let's get through it then. You're feeling good right now. I've got a feeling in about 10 to 15 minutes time, you'll be less happy with what I've got to show you. So got a few topics I think we'll cover today, just to make it a bit clearer for everyone. So things that to keep in the back of your mind. I want to touch upon some things. Giving the ball away when going long. That's something that I've noticed we're doing a lot right now, which I think we should stop doing. Fulham's attacking rotations. Unfortunately, we are going to see one team in this that look really good. The problem is it's not Leicester, but we'll give credit where it's due as we see how you should play football and how a mid-table team can look really good just by having some good attacking patterns at play. We are unfortunately going to be looking at a poor defensive setup leading to players totally unmarked, and I have a keen interest to see what young Andreas has to say about this because it may or may not feature some players from Denmark in this particular sequence. And I think a really big topic that I've been promising, I've been hyping up that would be happening is we are going to be talking about that Bilal El Kanu sub. And the more that I look at it, the more mystified I get. But we'll look at why Ruud may not have made that decision. And I want to be constructive on this show as well. Where do we go from here? Is there anything we should do? Or is it just time to accept that it's championship football again on the menu next season? Let's answer that question at the end. So let's get it underway. It was 2-0 to Fulham. And as you can see here, well, look, guys, we won the shots on target battle with 4 compared to Fulham's 2. So we shoved that up your ass, Lily Whites. But no, they absolutely dominated us in this match. And, we played Palace, and against Palace, I think we had a really good first half. And I think if you look at the stats overall, we probably should have got something from the game. But in this game, no, we were outclassed. I think maybe we were competitive for 10 minutes, but it felt like as soon as Fulham took control, there was only going to be one winner. And I felt even at half time, we were trying to be positive. But in my head, I was just like, these guys, they're just going to go up 10%, one more gear, and it's going to be GG's. And that's what happened. And we'll look at why that happened. Let's look at our starting lineup. So it was pretty much as you were, with one change, which I think really, really irritates pretty much every Leicester fan. And that's Mr. Jordan Ayew, who came into the team instead of Buonanotte. Now, I've got a few sections about Jordan Ayew. So we could look at why I think Ruud is selecting him, but why ultimately I think it's a bit of a mistake that we do keep selecting him. But I'll cover that. As for Fulham, strong lineup. There are 2 ex-Leicester players, would you believe, in their lineup? Tim Castagna, of course, but also Calvin Bassey used to play for us. He never made a first-team appearance, went on loan to Rangers, did really well. They got to the final, and then, he's ended up going to Ajax and now to Fulham. And yeah, they've got a really strong squad, you've got to say. It's something I'm a bit jealous of. I don't know if they necessarily have a superstar, but just everyone's pretty good. And I think that's why they're doing so well. A lot of good players, and I think they actually achieve more than they're more than the sum of their parts. And that's because they have a very good coach who I was quite impressed by, I've got to say. Yes, this is a really good comment. Just 7 tackles. I've got a specific section just on that, but respect to you, my friend, because you could predict what I'm going to be talking about. So let's start looking at the first half analysis, and I try and take some positives before we get into the negative stuff. There's not much, but there are some stuff. So we had an early corner and we almost scored from this. And I think this was actually our best chance in the entire game, which is a bit sad. This is the one that came down as the big chance in the first half. So it goes up high, it falls down, and Ayew has a pretty decent chance on the ground. He gets into a shot, forces the keeper into the save. So that was a decent start in the game. But from that point on, we're starting to try and get control of the game. Now, something that I've been saying that I'm concerned about, because I feel this is quite against what Enzo had us do last season, is that more and more, perhaps to be honest, is because Mads Hermansen isn't in the team. That might actually be the logical reason why we're not doing it. But we aren't playing it out from the back anywhere as much as we were doing earlier in the season. And the reason I think that's weird is if you think through your head right now, I'm not actually sure we've conceded the goal through trying to play it out from the back this season yet. As weird as it sounds, we've conceded a goal pretty much every other way, but I'm not sure we've had like a kind of calamitous moment yet. So here's early on in the game, Vestergaard's got the ball and he's going to get pressed by Smith Rowe and Iwobi. And I think to give respect to Iwobi, Vestergaard passes fast and he's going to continue his run. He's going to pressurize Stolarczyk, the keeper, right? He's going to push it all the way back. So that forces Jakub to play it long. But the problem is he just gives it away and he puts Fulham on the attack. And this is why I'm concerned, because the thing is his teams are doing this over and over again. And this is why Fulham got control of the game. And well, I've got some more examples of this in a moment, but we keep going long, keep losing the ball, and it means we don't get to like establish control of the game. That's why Maresca did it last season. It's like he wanted to have 60 to 70% possession. So it doesn't matter about Yannick's lack of pace because we're playing in the opposition half. But this game, we're not doing that. And absolutely, the long passes are killing us. Do we even get 50% of our own passes? Section coming up, and I think the answer is no. So related to long passes is Jordan Ayew. So what is his contribution in the team? Because I think that's a big question that people are asking. Most people are on the Buonanotte train. I will literally, like I say, I've got some stats for both of them. But let's give him some credit in terms of what he does do. So earlier in the game here, the ball breaks to Winks. Winks is going to play it to Ayew. Ayew, to be fair, he's got the ball. He's under pressure, but he turns and he manages to create space. And now you can see this is like Ruud's idea. He wants to hit teams on like a fast and smooth transition. So he's going to go there. Justin knows it's time to get on this bike. And you can see here that they're both going to start running. They're both going to combine. And now, because of the way that the play has been compacted, there's like a pretty open space down this side that we can exploit. So Ayew's now going to play in Justin, and Justin's going to get in free. Now, it'll be interesting to see if this is going to be the case going forward with our team, especially with Woyo Koulibaly signing. Because I will say that I feel we're not scoring goals right now. That's just a fact. Why are we not scoring goals? And in my opinion, it's because our threat on transition compared to last season is really ineffective. When Ruud smashed us with Man United multiple times, to give them credit, on transition, their wide players were destroying us. Diallo, Garnacho, Rashford even. But we don't really have players of that profile right now, especially because, unfortunately, the Ghanaian Messi, a.k.a. Fatawu, is out for the season. So here we've got JJ, and JJ's going to try and cut back in. But you can see he's not like a winger. Do you know what I mean? If this is Fatawu in this situation, I would be thinking, oh, here we go. There's going to be magic coming on. But with JJ, that he's trying his best, but there's only so much he can do. Fair play. He plays back to Ayew. Again, if this is Ayew or Buonanotte, he has an effort, but it just goes high. But that's his contribution. To be fair, he is trying to link play, and the two of them are trying to work together. I don't think it's particularly effective. Because now, we're going to say, draws fouls and holds up play. He does do a little bit more, but it's not good enough. You look at the goals and assists, it's just the reality that he's not. So now we're going to look at a team that does have some good movement. Unfortunately, it's not us. So let's look at Fulham. Now, I mentioned before the game with Luke that I think the one to watch for Fulham was Anthony Robinson. He's got 10 assists now in the league because he got an assist against us. Of course he would, which is really, really impressive for a left back. And I think keep in your head, right? So we've got our fullback in Justin, who's trying to join the attack. What is he offering in comparison to a player that is better at that role? So that's what I think you should have in your mind, even though they play on good sides. And someone said, Fox Fanatic says, good player. Mate, I'd go a lot better than that. This guy, if he's not playing in the Champions League next season, I don't know what. Maybe it's because of his age, but he deserves the opportunity.
I was so impressed with his deliveries as well. Like, just the technique that he had. And like, this isn't even a dig at anyone, but I'm just saying, like, you compare it to VK with some of the balls that he puts in, it's just a different level, man. It's a different level. The quality, I keep saying technique because that's what it seemed like. He just found somebody every time, or nearly every time. It was super impressive. And the 1-2s, the triangles. I mean, he's a hell of a player, and I agree. And I'd be very surprised if he's not at a big club this summer.
And I think like one of the things, right, where you can really see the quality difference in these players is not the fact that they can't reach the same highs, but it's how consistently they get there, right? Because we have seen like pretty much nearly moments of brilliance for every player on our team, showing they have some Premier League quality in them. The problem is we so rarely see it, right? I thought that was the problem with Jordan Ayew against Fulham again, right? Too ineffective, too often missed the target on these shots. Or Victor Christiansen as well. I think it's the right thing to highlight, because when he then finally gets in that crossing position, too often his crosses don't sit where they're supposed to. They don't land or don't hit the head on the man he needs to hit. And that's the problem, right? We're too ineffective up front because we don't have the quality to consistently get the most out of our chances. And that was the big difference I felt with Fulham, because every time they won the break, if it was Iwobi or Robinson, you felt like the cross would connect or the shot would be better. And it so often was compared to how often it was for us.
And can I just say one other thing, Anil, which does back up that what everybody, not just us, everybody is saying about how the quality of the Premier League has improved so much over the last couple of years. Timothy Castagna only starts for Fulham because Tete is injured, right? And Castagna was our main, well, one of the main fullbacks in our side when we were pushing for top four. And if everybody was fit at Fulham, he wouldn't even get in Fulham's team right now. So that
I was
shows.
Say, I thought he was their worst player on a day, and he was still all right. But
I think he's rubbish.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's funny, yeah. So it's funny, like Lox and Andreas actually haven't seen this before we came to it, but the blue tinted hive mind is working in full effect, because Lox is talking about exactly what I was going to add. So I've put here Rockstar Robinson. So here's sort of how the triangles operate. You've got Bassi, he's going to work with Iwobi. You've also got Smith Rowe, and of course you can't even see him in shot, but you can see that Anthony Robinson's going to be hugging the touchline, even though he's a fullback. That's something he can do, and the ball's going to get to him. And as you mentioned, Andreas, he's got one thought on his mind and one thought only, and he's going to try and get some end product and deliver a great ball in. And he can. You can see the technique, the sort of whip he gets in there, and you can see where he's delivered to. Now, ultimately, this is a header over, but that was a sign of things to come. And it was worrying me that he was getting that space, because they're looking to engineer that. And, I was saying during the game that, like, we've just seen Justin attack down that side. But was that the right move to make? I would have considered in a game like this, maybe attacking down the other side, because as you said, Castagna, his crosses aren't of the same quality as Anthony Robinson. So maybe that's something that Ruud got wrong. I'm going to give you some more examples. This is Sander Berge. He also had a really good game. I think it went under the radar. I'll show you some stats as to why I think that. Actually, just so you know, Sander Berge was the player that Genk replaced Wilfred Ndidi with, would you believe? And there might be something about that. So Berge has played it out here, and he's played it to Robinson. And now we're going to see these really clever patterns of play, the way that they sort of operate here. So what's going to happen is Smith Rowe is going to come in this way, Iwobi's going to go that way, and they're basically going to create holes in our well-orchestrated 4-4-2 when previously they weren't any. So here we go. And so Iwobi's now coming back there. So you can see that he's dragging Justin with him. And look, that's going to make this gap down this side. But Justin's got to do right. Someone's got to be handling him. So Smith Rowe, he's going to get the ball. The first thing he's going to do is he's going to play it into that space. And because Robinson's quick, he's athletic, he's got end product. Look at that. Great ball. He's timed his run. He's onto it now. That's a really dangerous position. Again, just 9 minutes into the game, he's going to put like a gap. That's what you're talking about, the technique there, like to really get the whip on it. Puts it in. Luckily, it goes over him. And as you can see, look, it's almost coming in now. This is for Harry Wilson on the other side. Luckily, he made the mess out of it. But again, the threat was there. And it wasn't just Robinson that was getting involved. So pass and move to the Fulham groove is what I'm saying here. Again, Bassi. fair again to Bassi. I mean, he was really acting like almost this is what we wanted Callum Doyle to be doing for us last season, or to some extent Victor Christensen. Although I think he does try and do this sort of stuff. But they pushed up high, and he's going to get involved in the play to try and set up the chances. So here again, we've got Robertson up here. Now the move they're going to make is Iwobi's going to make this run. And even though he's all the way over here, that's going to make the gap for the ball past him to go to Smith Rowe. So he's going to play that ball. You can see Winks is a bit bamboozled. He's like, what? I didn't even see that pass coming on, which again is like a clever pattern of play. It's going to come to Smith Rowe, and now he's going to combine. I think this is Sasha Lukic, who is pushed up from a CDM role. They're going to play a quick 1-2. It's going to come into Smith Rowe, and to be honest with you, getting it here, a player of his quality, 30 million, he should at least be hitting a target, and luckily he didn't. But yeah, again, that was a really good, nicely executed movement. It's just movements, It's not that everything that I've shown you here isn't really like they've done an amazing dribble, or they've beaten the man, or they've got some sort of like elite skill that our team doesn't have. It's just very good coaching, you've got to say, which is what impressed me. And here again, this is another effective thing they've done. So we're going to come to conscious with the way that we go long ball and lose it. So here's an example. We've tried to play it into Ayew. Ayew's been boxed in this triangle. You're going to see they're going to try and press him. They're willing to do the defensive work. And Iwobi's going to get the ball off him. And you can see Smith Rowe, who's up here. And what's really good about Iwobi is as soon as he gets the ball, he's going to play it into Smith Rowe. And look at that. 3 people. He's past the press and he's going to be in behind. And now, because he's not the fastest here, Smith Rowe, that's maybe something that's a bit weak about his game. I think a good player should be driving towards goal. That's what Iwobi did to us in the first game against Fulham, you might remember. But he actually turns back. But even though he's going to turn back, that gives time for Iwobi to make the overlapping run. So he's going to go down the side. So now we've got Smith Rowe here. He's going to play it into Iwobi. And now Iwobi even has got some end products. And he's going to go for the cross. Fair play here. This time, Wout Faes does actually win one of the aerials. He had a mixed game, Wout Faes, I would say. He was, I think, at fault for one of the goals, although it wasn't just his fault, but he did actually tidy up some other stuff, but it went away. And the end result of all of that was that we were just getting absolutely dominated. 73% possession to Fulham. They're making all these chances. The one thing you could say is, oh yeah, it looks pretty. It's all tiki-taka, but they haven't had a shot on target. They're not scoring a goal, which is true. But it's like, if you're looking at the play, which team looks like they're going to score and which one's kind of offering nothing? And here we go, conscious. I was sitting on this side and the movement and passing of the left was brilliant. Bassey came up, went to help, and we had the 3 covered. Robinson then got behind us from the wing and from the inside. Really, really good. So yeah, look at that. I'm going to say things like that, you don't coach that overnight. That takes hours on the training ground with the same players and do the rotations, because it's all about, if I go this way, Locks has got to go that way and Andreas has got to play the pass here. And it's like, if I go too soon or Andreas plays the wrong pass, it all goes wrong. So it's pretty tricky. But when it works, I'm a football connoisseur. I love to see it. So it was pretty impressive. So that was what Fulham were trying to do. And that's a bit, I think, irritating that at home we're getting dominated by the other team. But what Rude's trying to do, and he did this well on Man United, is to have some kind of threat on transition. But I'm going to say that again here. Threat. Because I think this is why, I want to say, for me, I even suggested on this channel that if I was going to make a change, I would try and do what Forest did, which is I would try and be more defensively compact and try and get teams on the break. And Rude has gone for that. But I think the reality is we don't have the players to execute it properly. And I think the big reason is for Tawu being out, because it means that both wingers are weaker as a result. But here we're going to see Sumari's going to win the ball back here after a rare giveaway by Burge, trying to find the through ball. He's going to play it in. This is to Bilal. El Khanous takes it on the turn. Lovely jubbly. And something that he's doing all game is he knows the pass to play. So even though he's here, he's going to play this lovely dink ball up to Ayew. So Ayew's got it. And fair play, the GOAT now knows the space to attack. He's done this all his life. So the ball's going to get played to Vardy. And Mavadidi's now going to attack down this side as well. We're only going with 3 players. But to be fair, that's something that Forest are doing at the moment. They tend to only attack with 3. And if you've got the right 3, you can still make a goal scoring opportunity. So Vardy's in here. And, this is looking threatening. When he's in this position, maybe he's gone a bit wide. You go for the shot. But fair play. He's going to go for a cross-field ball. Play a nice, decent cross. Mavadidi's rushing into the back post. So Castagne's got to deal with this. He can't take the opportunity. And he almost scores an own goal. And I was really hoping if that was Castagne during the relegation season, you can bet your ass that would be an own goal.
Yeah.
but obviously the Fulham have fixed his hoodoo and he manages to stop it going in. But that's what we're trying to do on transition. But the thing is, if these moments are coming rare, few and far between, then these moments matter, right? Like, to be fair, this is a decent move. It's a good cross and we forced them into some action. But I compare it to the really top teams and they tend to score a lot more on these transition efforts. Like Forest especially are really, really good at it. Although I do think they're overperforming their expected goals quite a lot. So right, now we're going to get to the long ball. So I want to bring this up because this is a really good comment. The long passes to him, and I think he means Ayew, were crazy. Bassey ate them up and we lost the ball. It took Ayew out of the game, recovering from the Bassey smashing him. And who was Ayew supposed to be tracking? And there were many comments like this from everyone in chat. And yeah, this frustrates me. So here's a good example. Here's Vestergaard on the ball, and he's going to play a pass over the top. And to be fair, it's a decent ball. Like, he is good at hitting the diagonal, and he's aiming here to try and hit Jordan Ayew to hold it up. But here he is, 1-on-1 versus Robinson. But Robinson wins the ball. He plays it into Iwobi, and Iwobi can play it into Burge, and now they're out, and they can start an attack. So what have we really achieved there? We've just lost the ball, right? We don't have to do that. We literally were a possession team. We've got our 3-2 shape here. We could play there. We could try and bait the press and make something happen. We didn't. Here's another example. So again, it's the Vestergaard, and he's going to try and play the ball over top here, and this time he's going to try and find exactly the same man. So this time it's going to go to Ayew. But what ends up happening? Again, Robertson gets there first and they win the ball. So he's not really doing the job that he's asked to do here. This is James Justin. He's got the ball. He's going to try and go long. Bassi just comes up, wins it. Easy. Yeah.
I think one of the big problems about this as well is the fact that obviously we don't have the tallest strikers up front who can just win down the ball. But as well, I think it's even possible to do this with the players that we have. The problem is we're not having someone there to help pick up the second ball, because way too often, the ball kind of into this dead man, so where they both go for it and no one really claims control. And obviously when it's in their half of the field, it's always going to be them who's there first. If we don't have someone like Bilal maybe hovering around the area waiting for it to come down and then pick up the second ball. So, I mean, you see it in a few of those instances you went through as well, right? I mean, they didn't necessarily win the ball, the defender who hit it to Calvin Bassey, but it was someone else from Fulham who picked up the second ball and then completely stopped the attack. So I feel like, it felt like just a waste of throwing the ball up to Ayew, because I think maybe 2 out of the 20 times we sent it to him, he ended up getting away with the ball, and that's not enough when we didn't have that much possession to begin with, right?
But what I'm saying is, why are we doing it? Because that's already 3 examples. I'm going to give you another example. There's many more I could pick from. Christensen this time around, he's going to play up to Mavididi, but Castagna deals with it. So that's 4 times. And not only do they deal with it, you can see they deal with it comfortably, and now they can start their own attack. Now, here's an example where instead of playing it high, we at least try and keep it on the deck a little bit. So Vestergaard's going to play. It is slightly in the air, but it's much sort of lower down. And this time, Ayew gets it. He's got 2 men around him. And because it's actually to feet rather than in the air, he can trap it, he can turn. And what does he do? He does the Ayew special. He wins a free kick and he gets us up the pitch. So we're obviously going for this tactic. And why are we going for this tactic? So here's Jordan Ayew's stats for the season. And as you can see, like pretty much all Leicester players, the attacking stats are pretty much non-existent. To be fair, though, defensively, as Locke said, he's a defensive winger. He's a bit of a Shinji Okazaki type player. But the one thing he has, to be fair to him, I wanted to come. So Ruud. Why is Ruud van Nistelrooy picking Jordan Ayew over Facundo Buonanotte? Because here's the stats that you compare to them, right? And actually, to be fair, you can see Buonanotte in the attacking sense is a bit better. Like his pass completion is way better, right? He's better at successful take-ons, unsurprisingly. He's way better at progressive passing, right? Even his tackles, interceptions, and blocks are there. But as you can probably see from these stats already, where's the bit where he's weaker? It's in the aerials one. So that's why Ayew's in the team, because it's noticeable that when we do have Ayew, we are looking for that long ball for him to win it. In my opinion, it's not working. Or when he wins the aerial ball, as Andrea said, we're not picking up the pieces. But that seems to be the reason why he's in the team. And yeah, if we compare the two just with the spider chart, you can see that like they're actually pretty similar. But to be honest with you, Buonanotte on the offensive side does offer more. Although I will say, like all of our players in Leicester, if you look at the assists, the shot creating actions, the passing is just not there. It's so different compared to last season because the step up is so great. Right, we're going to talk a bit about Bilal, but we're going to come to his sub a little bit later. But I just want to mention him in the second half. But I do also want to call out some things. So for me, I think this player is definitely the future of Leicester. I think even if we're in the Championship next season, we've got to make sure that we do our best to keep him. Will we, though? I don't know. But the one thing I will say about Karius, unsurprisingly for a 20-year-old, he's inconsistent. And given that he's playing in the 10 position, he can be wasteful. And you'll see that with some of his stats, which I'll draw in. But I'll bring your attention especially to like passing accuracy of 68%, not the best, and lost possession 14 times. But when he's on it, he cares. So yeah, this is an example of in the first half where he could do better. So Christensen and him are going to combine. Karius has got it. Lovely turn, to be fair, to make some space where there wasn't any before. He's got it, and he's going to go for the crossed ball, and Bassey's going to say thank you very much. So he's just too comfortable dealing with it. And I think this is where, look, to be fair, there's only so much you can do, but we're relying upon him pretty much to be, our Maddison replacement. So first half ends, and the stats, and to be fair, Fulham haven't really got that much XG either. They didn't make a quote-unquote big chance, but we haven't done much either. So, maybe you could say, oh, it's an all right first half. But for me, I was like, they're dominating the game here. They're going to turn it up. They'll make some subs, and we're probably going to get done here. And unfortunately, it couldn't be more right.
I will say, though, right? I think had this been like away from home against a team maybe just a bit better than Fulham, I think you'd walk away all right with this. The problem for me is the fact that we are at home here desperately needing something. So it felt like we weren't going for the game. That's the disappointing part, right? Because we need something to turn the bad spell form around. And this didn't feel like that. Had this been, let's just say we were in good form, and Fulham, Fulham are a very good team. You can see them in the top half of the standings in this Premier League season. So they quite clearly know how to play football, and they were very good technically, I thought. So I don't expect us to beat them every time. But when we're at home and desperately needing something, this isn't the output you want to see. Had this happened, away from home earlier in the season, I would have been more satisfied with it compared to now when we desperately need something. And the games at home really feel like the one where we have to turn it around, and we failed to do so, just like we did against not QPR, but Crystal Palace.
100%. I think for me, the really bad thing about this half is we felt like we were the away team. At least against Palace, it felt like we were at home. Here, it felt like we were hanging on to try and grab something at our own ground. But anyway, let's move into the second half. So Fulham did make a sub right at half time, which is something I don't think Ruud does enough of, something he shares with Cooper, to be honest with you. And I have to say that the sub surprised me because they took off Alex Iwobi, who, as I've just shown you, I think was having a pretty good game and cooking James Justin, and they put on Adama Traore. And what's even more interesting is that initially they put Adama Traore not on the right-hand side, which they normally do, but they did actually put him up against Justin, so actually playing on the wrong side, although later on he swapped wings again. So that was a change that they made. And almost immediately, though, it has a difference, although it's got nothing to do with Adama Traore. So they've got a throw in here, and all I've titled this is another early second half goal conceded. I don't know what's going on there. It's like, are we giving them like a nice tea to make them like feel a bit sleepy or drowsy? Like, Ruud, change it, but put Red Bulls, get to do the Vardy. We need to be alert for these second halves. It's really killing us. So he's going to come here. This, I think, actually not sure who it is. Raul Jimenez is their 7. So he's a striker, drop deep. He's going to just play across here. And, well, I'm going to show you a few shots, right? But just from a purely defensive setup, what's wrong with this picture, Locks?
A lot. Well, it's glaring, mate. Well, you know what? I want Andreas to answer it because of who
I'm going to show him some more incriminating evidence, but that's my question for all of you. Chat.
I'll gladly mention it already. I'll gladly mention it already if need be. But let's see more evidence. Let's pull up the receipts, shall we?
Exhibit B.
So this is now Wilson, right? He's still on this side, right? They haven't flipped them over yet. So he's got the ball. And, to be fair, Christensen gets back and he kind of forces him to, he does his kind of like almost karate kick backheel type thing to play it across. And here, look, again, they've only got 3 people in the box with goal side of all of their runners. So we should be pretty well set up here, right? Ball comes across, but this time here, you've just got to say that like they wanted it more. Smith Rowe wanted it more than Fass. He beats him to the ball. Look at that diving header, proper John Terry heading, clearing a ball with his head, if you remember that legendary one. They heads it into the back of the net. And they've scored so easily. But the problem is, right, is that I've noticed now that this is not once or twice. This type of goal we've conceded, I believe we've conceded it maybe 6 or 7 times. Now, I will ask him. So we're getting some interesting comments, but I would say don't necessarily fall in for the traps. The sort of comments is Christensen's in no man's land. VK's no fullback at all. He's barely a wing back, which is all true. But if I look at this picture, right, so now I'm going to ask Andreas, what is wrong with this picture?
To me, the biggest problem is, there are multiple, right? There are multiple. The defensive line is all out of whack. You can see, our 4 defensive players spread over a huge amount of distance. I think, to me, either you have to put someone like Mabedidi, who, our right wingers and left wingers are helping out as these extra wing backs you can see at defense to make us more defensively sound. So I think, this to me falls on both Mabedidi and Christiansen, because Christiansen seems to be having to sit very narrow here. He needs to be in the same position as Vestergaard to not put to make Wilson on offside. There are many things, like little details here that needs to be changed and tweaked. But we are tucking our fullbacks very tight when we defend, and that's because the responsibility to defend these wide angles is someone on like Jordan Ayew or Mabedidi here, and Mabedidi is completely out of position, ball watching. And Christiansen, if who he's trying to mark here is, I think, Sasa Lukic, right, number 22, then you shouldn't be this far. Like, the distance here, you're holding him, but you're putting Harry Wilson on side. So, there are mistakes from multiple people, but I think the biggest culprits are Christiansen and Mabedidi, to be honest.
There's so many interesting comments here. I want you to burn this image into your mind, right? Because almost all the comments are right. But the thing is, and this is my feeling, is I think we have been told to defensively set up like this, because I'm seeing this goal happen time and time again, right? So what's some of the comments that come in here that are really good, right? So Tommy Films, this is what I originally thought. Originally, when I first saw this goal during a match, I was like, Christensen, what are you doing, bruvs? Right? But if you look at it, he has got 2 men to mark, right? And the problem is that like because of the way that we play this 3-2-5 shape, right? So he's now acting as the left centre back. So actually, he's the one that's going to be marking their number 20 here, right? So he is actually in the correct position, right? People have asked what is Fass doing, but Fass has gone up to try and challenge Smith Rowe, right? That's the guy that he's been meant to. What's Vestergaard doing? Well, Vestergaard and Christensen are together playing as now the 2 centre backs. So that makes sense. Even Samare, he's there to kind of block the grounded passing through here. So then you think, okay, the obvious one then, which a lot of people have been here, is, okay, it must be Mavididi at fault, right? What is he doing? Why is he standing there? And that, I think I do agree, right? But I've seen this quite a few times. We're actually going to see it for the second goal they score as well. So the thing is Mavididi's here and he's sort of so out of position that I really don't understand between the left back and the left winger why this guy, Wilson, as someone said, that he can't believe his luck. How has he got so much space here? Now, I have mentioned before that we try and compress the game into one side of the pitch, which is what we've done here. So maybe what we have to do is prevent the cross coming here. But I feel like, so for me, how would I arrange this? If Christensen's going to take this player, Mavididi's got to be on this player. Or it could be Christensen's going to be on this player and Mavididi's got to be here. But basically what I'm saying is the overall organisation is awful here and it makes for a very simple goal. And unfortunately, when we come on to the second one, it's going to get even worse. Common boy from Bangladesh says, who is Fastmark and John Senna? Well, to be fair, he stepped up to get Smith Rowe. Now, what you could say is maybe Samare should be doing that. And I think what you're, because I get what you're saying, is you probably want Fast where Vestergaard is, Vestergaard where Christensen is, and then Christensen over here. But you've got to remember that what we're trying to do here is that, you know, a lot of Premier League teams do this, is because they've taken a set piece. We're trying to surround Fulham, rob the ball of them. That's why you can see we've tried to constrict, you know, compact on them, win the ball back quickly and start off our own transition. But again, if you're kind of slow to the press, there's many things here. Oh, look, I'm just going to say we are joined by some actual YouTube royalty. Good evening, Jacob Horsfield. Worked on a brilliant video with us with Locks. Always welcome to the channel. You can have some fun delighting in our misery as we look at loss number 7 here. And yeah,
well, I was just going to say as well, shout out to Jacob because he is actually doing a video about Leicester again. He can't stay away. There's that much going on. He's doing a video about Leicester's downfall, the downfall of Leicester City. That'll be coming out, I think he said Thursday. So Leicester fans, stay tuned for that one on his channel.
Tragic, great, man. Even more news to make us feel great about this season.
In your eyes, right? It's gonna be a rough watch to just think about the football we were watching 3 years ago and complaining about the fact we didn't make top 4 when we should have, and then to what we're doing now, right? 7 losses on the bounce. This is it's getting tough. It's getting tough.
Never-ending wheel of misery content. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair to Mr. Bangladesh, right? He's saying now look where Fass is, and the thing is, in this point moment, he is goal side of Smith Rowe. Like I say, the ball's going to come over, and he's got beaten there, and that's where I don't feel we have like enough aggression there. Now, this was a mistake from him, but I feel that like there were other things that we could do to do better. So keep this in mind, because like I say, if this was a one-off, it's still really poor, but maybe you could fix it. But I'm seeing this happen more time and time again, and I feel that like teams are exploiting it, or it's just too easy. The thing that really annoys me, I mentioned the Brentford game as well. It's just that like when I see this goal scored, it's like I've just given Fulham all this massive praise for the amazing rotations they've done and their smooth football, but this is just crap football. This is like me playing on Sunday down Power League with my mates. It's just like, I got the ball, I'll just go for a cross because there's a free man over there, and just like it's just too easy. You can't, if you're going to concede goals like that at Premier League, even here, like again, like how is he doing some kind of reverse karate kick thing and we conceding off that? I mean, anyway. And ridiculous. Just to kind of like really rub salt in the wounds, of course, that was Fulham's first shot on target.
Second game in a row that happened, by the way. Second game in a row. Same thing against Crystal Palace. The difference is in Crystal Palace, we could have scored 4 or 5 times in the first half. I don't think that was the case here, but the point still stands, right?
Anil, just a quick question as well. Like on the flip side now, if you apply this to Leicester in terms of being clinical, right? We've looked at data. I mean, last week, you looked at the data between Cooper and Rude. We are less clinical, right? Because on the eye, we're a lot less clinical than we were. I don't know what the actual data shows, but it feels like earlier in the season, people call it luck, whatever. We were clinical with the small amount of chances that we had. But this time, now at the moment, it's the complete opposite. And we feel like the unlucky ones, and the other teams are feeling like the lucky ones. You know what I mean?
I don't think we're getting unlucky here, though, because the thing is, yes, that could be their first shot on target, but they've had 12 attempts there, and they should have. They were just making the wrong pass, to be honest with you. The other thing as well, though, is that, like, yeah, why we like that, Locks? As I said, it's because when we're on transition, we're not being. It's not as rehearsed as well. Like, in my opinion, we'll get to it at the end, but I think it's just if we were. Basically, the sort of style that he's trying to do here, or the idea to play on this sort of transition, we're not very good at doing it. And I think it's something we need to fix. But we'll talk about that a bit later. Going to do a little piece on Buba Samari here, some driving runs. This is something that we know he's capable of. I'd like to see him do more of this. So this was actually something nice for him. Picks up the ball here and he just drives. He actually does a little step over here. Whoa, and didn't know he had that part of his game. That was very nice. Continues driving in. To be fair, maybe here we should be looking for Mavadidi or taking a shot. He actually tries to go all the way into the box, but he sort of loses control and he sort of tries the old JV dive to win a penalty, but it was never a penalty. Nice move, though. I think he could be more of a box-to-box midfielder, but...
I mean, this is something I said many times, right? I think he's someone who's very good at getting the ball from our end, half of the field, up until, you know, their final third. He doesn't seem to be the one to round off the play, but rather deliver it to someone, you know, who either finishes the chance or a Canute who makes that final pass and finds it. I think we can see a few goals in him every now and then. But yeah, I think that was a bit of an unfortunate one. I will say, Anil, as well, I was a bit disappointed you didn't decide to do this sort of analysis with the one Christiansen chance, right? You should have made that all for me, and then I would have gladly spent 10 minutes analyzing every single bit of skill he had there, and then obviously to put it wide at the end. But okay, I mean, I guess that was a good run too. Sadly, you know, he falls easier than I did when I was playing football back in the day, when I was literally get blown away by the wind due to how skinny I was. So disappointing there to go down like that, especially because, I mean, Joachim Andersen, right? A bit of a shithouse player himself as a Dane, but doesn't really touch him there. I mean, you couldn't complain that was never a penalty.
Yeah, what I would say is Samari frustrates me because I feel like you can see the potential there of what he needs to add to his game. But it's like if he was really good, you know, he would make something there or get the shot away or something like that. And he's just not quite got enough either on the defensive or the attacking side there. Something, I don't know if we'll ever get there. If he did, he would be some player. He's not at the moment. So then, yeah, just want to speak about it. Fulham have scored one. They almost scored some others. Again, this is just off a set piece. This worried me because I think we started to look a bit frail at set pieces recently. We were so strong at them earlier in the season. But here you can see it's just a little corner. They're all chasing. It comes to him in there. So he is good in the air, but, you know, fairly free header. He's aiming for there. And look at that. Bassi, I think if he's not, you know, he's left-footed. If he's right-footed, I reckon he sticks that away. But luckily, he couldn't reach to it, which is kind of bad. So, okay. Now I'm going to talk about El Canute and why the substitution was made. And this is going to be interesting. I think this is going to rile chat up a lot because when I first looked at it, I said during the game, you know, I wouldn't have taken him off, but I was noticing, as I said, is he wasn't really making things happen as much as I would like to. And it was kind of noticeable that he was giving the ball away. And I started making some examples of that. But the funny thing is as I started making examples of it, I kept finding all the stuff that he did well. And so basically my conclusion at the end is I still don't know what Ruud was smoking. Taking him off, but we're going to show. And yeah, to be fair, Steve, this is kind of what I think, right? Is the nutshell is he's doing a lot of the right thing, but again, a bit like conscious. Ruud says it's not for mere mortals to know. That's the reason. We'll see it. So we'll see good and bad, right? So when Canute is picking up the ball in this area, for me, I'm like, wow, I don't think there's another player in the team I'd rather have the ball in this area than him. Right, he's got the creative spark. It's not going to come off every time, but if something is going to happen, he will do it. And he's going to go for this little ball into wings, right? But it's a tame pass, and it's easily picked off by Sander Berge, a name that keeps coming up time and time again in this analysis. So he's kind of lost it there. Here's another example, right? So here he is on set pieces, and this is something to be fair to Luke. It's like Luke says, I think El Canute is definitely better at Maddison at the same age, but he's nowhere near as good on the set pieces. And I can't remember him ever taking a good set piece. So he swung it in and easy win for them, right? So not made something happen there. And that's basically, again, giving the ball away. Yeah. But he was making things happen again. So here he's got the ball in this space. Earlier on, I think maybe 1 or 2 games ago, he went for like a really outlandish shot and it went nowhere near the goal. But this time around, look at that. He's played a really nice deft pass, nice weight of pass. He's coming to Mavadidi. Mavadidi, even for him, can pick it up and drive with his left foot, has a go. And look, that's a decent effort. I think Mavadidi very rarely scores with his left foot doing that. That's, again, I think where he's a bit weak. But that's a good chance. And Bilal has set that up. Here's another example. So now Mavadidi's going to return the favour. Bilal's drifting into the pocket here in between 4 players. Mavadidi finds the pass, he gets it. And again, here you're thinking, oh, maybe he could go for the through ball here, maybe he could go through the through ball there, maybe he could have a shot. You want to see something. But to be fair, he spots the pass, he plays it into Winks, and Winks has a fairly decent effort that test the goalkeeper. So again, he's making passes here. He is actually our most creative player here, right? Not necessarily his fault that the rest of the team aren't doing so well with it. Here's another example, right? So this one's like actually Fulham are clearing it and it's going to go over sort of Mavadidi's head. So now the ball's going to go here. And look at here, right? So even though Kanous is here, and this is Iwobi who's going to get on the ball, and this is the player that Kanous is supposed to be on, right? And this, by the way, is Adama Traore, the guy that is built like an American footballer. And Bilal is not built like an American footballer. But look at this. He does all the chasing backs. Again, look what position he is here. He's going to do the hard work, makes up the distance, and he's shoulder to shoulder with Adama friggin' Traore.
That's crazy.
And not only does he barge him off the ball, he plays it into Christensen. Christensen plays it back to Kettle Kanous. He gets it. He moves up the pitch. And again, he plays a knife pass into Ayew. That is absolutely brilliant, right? That is... The thing is, yeah, he's not got the end product, right? But if you're losing, right, and you want to get back in the game, he is acting, in my opinion, like the captain on the pitch. He, in fact, is the only player I can really say. Sometimes Buonanotte does it, but I feel he does it when he gets himself into trouble. But like I say, when I see that, if I'm on the team and I'm seeing people play like that, I'm thinking we've still got a chance here, right? And yet, just 3 minutes later, he gets taken off, and there were boos all around the King Power. So yeah, and he's put on the other one. So. Look, I'll ask you guys what your opinion of it was. But as I said, when I started, I wanted to say, oh, do you know what? It's because he's not, if you look at these stats, overall, he didn't have a great game. But I think it was very noticeable, Duck, that when we did the match ratings, Kanous was the man of the match. Admittedly, was only 6 out of 10, but that was considerably higher than any other player on the team. He was trying, and I just showed you there. He did, 2 key passes. He was actually making chances. So talk to me, guys. What did you make of that?
I think the big thing with Kanous, right, and it's something that if you have read into how he was in the past as well over at Genk, he isn't a player who finishes the chance himself, right? He is the visionary who creates the chances. He doesn't, like Kevin De Bruyne, have the lethal right foot. If you go into, having played with him in Football Manager myself, he has 5 finishing, which obviously is indicative of the fact that he isn't this clinical finisher. And if you read into the articles and how he was, that was never his job. I think the problem, the fact that he has this little output, is the fact that he has been trying to take more responsibility and shooting himself because no one else is in good form, right? And you can clearly see he's never had that lethal right foot to be able to slot in the top right corner or whatever. And when everyone else around him, the guys who are supposed to be the finishers, every time he gets the ball to them, they fail to finish. It clearly lacks end output because he needs these other guys to be in their A game as well. And when he gives them the brilliant ball, they need to be able to slot it in the back of the net.
It feels to me, like he was kind of punished for being the only one who was trying to take the game, by the scruff of the neck and make things happen. And because he was trying that so much, obviously there were a few times where it didn't work out, and it feels like he was punished by that. I honestly don't. I just don't know. I just don't know why he was pulled off, mate. I honestly can't think of why he was dragged. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I think it was Clibo yesterday on the call-in show put forward the idea maybe on his monitors and stuff that he was hitting his reds, or that he wants to be saved, he wants to be preserved. But at that point of the game, you can still win the games. You just don't know what can happen. And to take off the only one who looked like he was going to make something happen, I'm going to be honest. I know people will disagree with this. I think the fans are right. I think the fans were absolutely bang on to give Ruud that stick, because it was a brain dead substitution in my eyes. It was brain dead. I don't even care if it was Alex Ferguson or Pep Guardiola who made that change. It was brain dead. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially when you're struggling, it's to take off the one person who's trying. That was the crazy thing. So I'm going to explain to you what he did, right? But I think it was wrong. So what he's moved to after the subs is he actually went for 4-4-2. And when he goes for the 4-4-2, the reason why he's taken off Bilal is he wants players like Soumare. He wants box-to-box players, because what he's thinking is I need players who can both support the attack but also come back and do the defense. Because by having 2 strikers up, it means we can go more direct, but now the game's going to become more like basketball. And he's probably thinking in his head, the problem with Kanous is, even though I've just shown you him out-muscle Traore, that was the one that really made me think, Ruud, lad, what are you doing, right? But maybe he is thinking that, to be fair, Kudus is maybe not like a true box-to-box player.
Yeah.
What I would say is you could still have put him on the left-hand side, or you could still maybe have had him as an IU and then had it like more of a 4-4-1-1 and gone that way. So I still think it was a terrible decision, but that's what he's done. He's done it in the last few games where if plan A isn't working and he wants to go a bit more direct, that's what he's trying to do. But the problem is he makes those subs, and that was at sort of 63 minutes, and just 3 minutes later, Fulham actually score again. And what's really sad here is they actually score off a Leicester attack. So here we've got the ball, Booba's got the ball, so again they're going to be going box to box. Skips there, he's going to play the ball through to Vardy. Now, even though Vardy's under pressure and he takes a tumble, fair play to him, he gets the ball through to IE, which is really good. IE's got the ball and he's going to try and play in McAteer here. But the ball's not the best, and so Fulham can deal with it, and they're going to play it back to Leno. So Leno's got it, and now they're going to be able to build from the back. I'm going to play it through their defense. This is Castagna, of course. I'm going to play it into, I think this is Sander Berge. No, this is Sander Berge, so I'm not sure who this is. Oh, yeah, this is Anderson, isn't it? They've played him into. He's going to turn. So we're going to now kind of move forwards a little bit, skip maybe 5 seconds, but they've picked up the ball here. So now they're on the attack. They're moving forwards. And again, they're just walking through the space. And here's the problem, right? So you got Soumare here, Skip here. So here's the problem when you go 4-4-2 and you lose it on one of the attacks like this, is you've got Furs get back. So they play the ball through the lines. There's a lot of players. There are 6 players out of the game there. This is the problem, right? When you play this style. So because there's 6 players out of the game, Fulham with their attacking 5 now have got more chance of finding it. So they're going to play the ball in here. And do you know what? I said to you, burn that image into your mind. So I'm going to come back to you. This time I'll start with you, Andreas. So, I asked you last time what was wrong with the picture. Here's the new picture. And to chat, what's wrong with this picture?
I mean, again, we're sitting too narrow. There's too much space to exploit. It's looking like a bit, back in the Cooper days when this happened to Justin instead. And if it's Christiansen who needs to be wide, or if it's Mamadidi who needs to be, following the overlap or whatever, the offensive player, I think there is a lot wrong again. And all the space, and he gets easy time to finish.
This is why I'm saying I think it's a structural fault, and I really hope someone from the club is looking at this and they fix this. Because if you remember those positions they took up for that first goal that Smith Rowe scored, they're almost the same. Christensen again is the one that's acting as the left centre-back, and he's marking the striker. And Mavididi again, he's almost in the same position. I think last time maybe he was a bit further forward, but he's definitely played there rather than out on the width. So that's why, even though it's mistakes, I'm convinced that they are actually standing where they've been told to stand. That is my genuine opinion, and I think it's wrong. And that's something that's worrying me. So we need to look at this as the games keep going. But anyway, it's criminal because now this is Wilson or Smith Rowe. You've got Adama Traore completely free. So the ball's going to come out here. Again, you're going to play the ball because, of course, you're going to be trained to still. We're trying to compact the game, but this is just criminal. Like Mavididi, look, again, the positions is identical. Again, he's in no man's land. Has he been told to stand there to try and, because to be fair, like the one thing I have seen Forest do this a lot is the way that they play is they will have some of their wingers like Elanga and Hudson-Odoi in these positions. And the reason I'll have these in positions, this was similar to Mahrez when we won the Premier League, is because if they do turn the ball over, they want those players to be able to attack as fast as possible. So they don't want, that 10 yards can make a difference. But anyway, in this case, it's a simple ball over the top. Traore's got it, and it's just, easy. And it's actually not VK's fault here as the ball comes across, because he was on that man, and now he's got to mark 2 players again. Right. So again, and look at the positions, it's the same thing. And I could find you other examples of this from the thing. So yeah, Phil, is he lazy backtracking? Either he is, but I think in these positions, if you look at this, because he's here, is that he's still standing in this. What I'm saying is that if he's here at this point in time, like you can see Traore here. So why is at no point in this attack? Or here, you could say, for example, well, Vestergaard can look at him in the ears, and then Christensen can come out wide. So they're trying to make more of a sort of narrow back 3. I don't know. It's not working for me. Yeah, Sean, why is Victor on the striker instead of the wide man? I don't get it. In this case, why is what is he just standing here as a lamppost, Vestergaard? I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway, we'll stop moaning. But that's the same for me. That's the same defensive structural problem. And just Fulham in this game had 2 shots on target. They only had 2, and they scored both, and it was the same goal. Criminal. Anyway, we'll talk about some subs. So then, after the crowd's absolutely lost their shit at this point, and you can't blame them, we've made some more subs. And this time round, he put on Daka and he put on Buonanotte. And okay, I was like, okay, great. You've realized your mistake. Bilal was making stuff happen. So you're going to put back on a creative player. But where did he put Buonanotte? He put him out on the left wing, which he could have done with Bilal, but he decided to put on Buonanotte, even though I think he's right-footed. I know he can use... Yep. If someone could just screen grab Lox's face right there, that is exactly what was going through my head too. So here's the proof. He's playing on the left-hand side there. But to be honest with you, he didn't really affect the game. One more person that I've got to speak about is a player that is quite possibly, I wouldn't say he's the worst signing of the summer. Maybe you could say that for the Leicester's point of view, but for me, more a baffling signing because it's just a player that we didn't need and who offers pretty much nothing. So unfortunately, not living up to the price tag. Here's the ball. Is going to come to Skip. He's coming on. So basically, Skip and Buonanotte came on and they just couldn't get into the game. In fact, if anything, it made the team worse, in my opinion. I actually think we looked worse after the subs rather than better.
Who would have thought, by the way, who would have thought bringing on Casey McAteer and Oliver Skip that we would look worse? I mean, I'll tell you what a shock. What a surprise that was. Wow. What a surprise.
Gotta keep the glasses on for that one.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, Sean, I don't know why we won't sign a winger. For me, we'll get to that again, is bonkers. So you get to Skip, he actually makes a mess up with this. He doesn't control it properly, so he gives the ball away. So Fulham on the attack, and because they're on attack, now they're through one-on-one Wilson. And if he's going to win, this could have been 3-0. To be fair to him, the one thing he did, which was really good in this game, is he comes back and he makes an all-or-nothing tackle. If he messes that up, that's a red card and that's a man sent off. But fair play, he does actually win the ball, but he gave it away in the first place. So to quote someone on the instant match reaction, they said, the one thing he did well is he won the ball back after he gave it away and put them through one-on-one. So I forget who that was, but you're correct.
Is that what they say about Indeed? His second touch is a tackle.
Basically, yeah. After we're going to come to Indeed in a moment, but here were his stats, and this is just awful, right? So he was only on for 22 minutes, I think. Accurate passes, 58%, awful. He won 2 ground rules, to be fair, but he lost possession 8 times in the time that he was on, and he had 1 foul. Awful. Did absolutely nothing. To be fair, he did actually win some tackles. But okay, here's the big point. So someone, I don't know if I've got this starred or not. If I don't, no, I don't. Apologies for that. But someone made a really comment, and they were basically about like, we're not winning tackles. And 100%. Right, so I literally typed this in. You can try this out for yourself. Statsmuse.com, free shout. And this Andrea is going to probably made happy. So I literally typed in, and I thought, you know what? I want to see who's made the most tackles of any Leicester player. And I wanted to get the complete ranking. So here he is. So here's all of the tackles that the team have made. And actually at the top, to be fair, is Victor Christensen's made 53 tackles. So that's fair play to him. That actually, I didn't realize he did so well on that. So that's pretty good. He has played a lot of games. We've done it. Second, even though he's been out for about 6 games by now, is Wilfred Ndidi, 49, right? But here's the real problem. So Ndidi's on 49 tackles, Samari, 20, Winks, 19. You can even see that Buonanotte, 41, El Canoes, 25, are making more challenges than our CDMs, right? And this is a big problem, especially if both these two are playing, because they're not going to win the ball back, right? And so here are all 3 of the CDMs that played in the game against Fulham. Harry Winks, only 3 ground duels, only won 1 of them. To be fair to Samari is the only one. He was described as being a hybrid between Tielemans and Ndidi. 7 ground duels he's involved in, 1 more than half of them, and aerial duels actually won 2 out of 3. So not bad, right? Ground duels for Ollie Skip was in 4. You can see between Winks and Skip, unsurprisingly, they don't even go for the aerial duels because they're too short, right? But here's the problem. So Harry Winks, 1 total tackle. Samari, 0 total tackles. Skip, 2 tackles, but one of them was the one that he won after giving it away. So that's 3 tackles in total between all of our 3 CDMs. Here was Sander Berge for Fulham, 6. He's literally made twice as many tackles as our entire CDM. And look at this. 14 ground duels, 1/2 again. That's more than all of these numbers put together. Okay, he didn't win a ground duel, and he only lost possession 7 times. Whereas, as we can see, Oliver Skip in the 20 minutes that he was in the game lost it more than Berge did the entire time round. Samari did lose the ball quite a lot as well, which is what I'm going to do it. So the problem is that just means that like we're not competing. And actually, I'm going to come back to this. I said I'd answer it at the end, and now I'm going to come back to it again for Jacob. So he said, do you not think the lack of transition ability and aggression stems from a lower physical flooring in the squad compared to establishing teams? Well, what do you think after I presented the data? The data shows to me that we get bullied, right? We're not capable of competing and winning it, right? And, you know, the problem is that, like, when Cooper was making his signings, some of the signings he was making, I was thinking, okay, I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to make the team more physical. That's why he's bringing in players like Jordan Ayew. But again, why is he bringing Ollie Skipping, a player who basically doesn't make challenges, doesn't make key passes, doesn't do anything, as Manny would say? You can bring it up other than cost 20 million. And I compare this to Wilfred Ndidi. Well, I just showed you that Ndidi, even though he's been out now for, what is this, 5 games in a row, 6 games in a row, he still made more tackles total than the other 3 put together. You can see his stats here. Yeah, Ndidi's not perfect. He makes mistakes as well. But look, he's even with the assist, he was offering more in that regard, right? And that's his problem. And why I'm coming to this more again is that basically, if I had to boil this game down to it, right, even though we're struggling and we're trying to stay alive, here's my title. Fulham wanted it more. They're 2-0 up, 74 minutes into the game, right? They're in cruise control. We've done absolutely nothing the entire game. And it's going to come here. This is Sander Berge. He's 1-on-1 with Buonanotte. And he says, you know what, mate? That's my ball. Get on the deck. Faz is like, oh, it's a foul. It's a foul. Mate, it's Premier League. Get up. Keep playing. What are you doing? Don't turn your back to the ball. Cassagna's got the ball. Thanks very much, mate. Going to play the ball through. And they continue on the attack. And they won a free kick here at this point in time because we were getting frustrated. And that's my point, is that that was a team, even though they were just in cruise control, they could have saw out the game, they still were trying to win every challenge. And that's what we're not doing well at the moment. We're not competing physically enough. And I do wonder, if you think about the last 2 seasons, how competitive were we in the last season under Brendan Rodgers? We weren't. Even under Maresca, we were good. But because we had so much control of the game, because teams sat off us, we didn't really have to win these ground duels. What we did do is when we lost the ball high up the pitch, we would try and compress and win it back really quickly for the high press. But we never really had to get into this. Because here's the thing. In the Great Escape season, under Nigel Pearson, because the type of players that we had, Huth, Vasilevsky, Wes Morgan, Danny Drinkwater, Matty James, although he was probably injured for most of that season too, Vardy, right? We had Albrighton. You had players that knew the rough and tumble of the Premier League and they knew how to get involved in it. So that's a really big issue for me. And here's another example then. So Facundo Buonanotte, who I am still a big fan of, he's still a young player. He's going to receive the ball here from Buonanotte. I've already shown him once where he's got pushed off the ball. Similar thing though, right? He's kind of dawdling on the ball. And Fulham just say, okay, we're just going to rob the ball and get it off you. And now it's going to transition into attack. That's the thing. It's like, you've got to have the strength to out-muscle it. You've got to either keep it or play the ball. You don't, you lose it. It's going to go into Traore. And to be honest, if you look at this position, I think they should be scoring here. But luckily, they're a bit wasteful. And to be fair to him, he's made the mistake for that second goal out fast. Or is the first one? I can't even remember. But this time round, he is aggressive and he wants the ball more and he wins it and he keeps it out. So he stops it there. But yeah, here were then the stats for just the second half, and this is just a terrible half. Look at that. I think that's no big chances. It's all Fulham dominated.
It's grim reading, right? Especially considering the fact that this wasn't us holding on to a game. We were 1-0 down after 3 minutes in that half, and the fact that we managed to create that little is really, really disappointing. I think we are in deep shits, and we've talked about Ndidi more and more as time has progressed, right? Because it's very clear. I think him and Soumare are the must-needed duo in our midfield to add both some offensive capabilities, but more importantly, the defensive capabilities needed to help out the defense who is struggling at the moment. Yeah, I think these injuries, man, like when we look through it and we analyze these things, you just realize how much they're killing us, right? You can see we're missing Ndidi. We have the player we need right now injured. We don't have a time frame for when he's back. Or we've mentioned, right, if we had the Fatawi on our wing who could be able to cut inside or beat his man out for the rest of the season, and it's really sad to think about. And then it just, that makes it even more disappointing that the board so far has only been able to provide cover for Ricardo Pereira 21 days into the January window, right? And he wasn't even able to play for one of the 2 key home games we just had with Crystal Palace and Fulham. So we need something. We need it soon. I'm seeing more of the good, cheap options go from the table, right? Andreas Skov-Olsen now left for Wolfsburg, and I think Grønbæk has headed to Southampton as well on loan. Like these players that have quality and the ability to walk into a first starting 11, they're heading somewhere else because we're just not doing anything. And I mean, yeah, it's sad. I think, I'm horrified at this point, to be honest. Unless these guys get magically treated at the injury table, and in the physio room we get Peter Pan or someone in to sprinkle some fairy dust on their legs so they're ready to play again next week. I'm very, very worried. Obviously, I'll hold on to hope until we go down, but it's looking rough, and I've never been this pessimistic about our situation.
Oh, mate, when Andreas is pessimistic, you know you're in trouble. So I'm going to give you
Game
my match
over.
thoughts. For me, a poor performance from start to finish. We never looked likely to score. First gear Fulham, as I was calling them, looked like they could score if they could be bothered. That's all it was, just like they couldn't be bothered. The gulf between the two sides was depressingly large. Fulham right now are 10th in the table. That's really depressing. Sander Berge made more tackles than Winks, Samari and Skip combined. Our team, okay, this is taken from Manny, but I agree with him. Our team lacks physical attributes, pace, strength, aerial ability, and these things are getting exposed. You're seeing it. But I'm also saying that a poor defensive setup and poor concentration also hurt. They didn't do anything special for those goals that they scored, other than we just stood in the wrong positions. The results in the table, you know what that all means. I mean, as it stands, we still, well, Everton are starting to pull away now, so it looks like this bottom four are going to be the ones toughing it out. But I wanted to be constructive, right? We can have a moan in a moment, and we're all entitled to moan. But where do we go from here? This is the thing that I wanted to add to this one. So, cast your minds back to this game. Man United 3, Leicester City 0. Locks, can you tell me who was the manager of Manchester United for this game? You're muted, but I'm going to pretend you said
Mr. Van Nistelrooy.
Ruud Van Nistelrooy. Okay, so here's the thing. For all of those of you that have given up on Ruud, and I could totally understand why, just so you know, I actually thought he might have been sacked after 7 losses in a row, because to be honest with you, that's absolutely...
we can't afford it. That's the issue, though. Like, you, even if you wanted to, I don't think they can at this point. He's here for the rest of the season.
Unless he wants to go himself, because he might be getting fed up. But anyway, this was a team that they played against us. And of course, they've got much better players. Their team cost over $1 billion, so we're going to get to that. But here's the thing. I would say the key things that this team had that we don't. Firstly, you've got 2 CDMs. Ugarte especially is very good at winning tackles. Casemiro, he's getting a lot of heat, but when he plays in just this role as the water carrier, rather than having to play an Eric Ten Hag's mental, let's just leave Casemiro exposed 3-on-1 system, he still looks pretty good. But on transition, they have Amad Diallo, they had Rashford or Garnacho that came on and scored a goal. And of course, Bruno right now is a much better 10 than Bilal. Maybe in the future that will change. Haaland, I don't think I feel a bit sorry for him. He should have stayed at Atalanta for a few more seasons. Too early to go to Man United, in my opinion. And here you can see the passing networks. And obviously, this is a Steve Cooper era. So what the hell was going on here other than pizza slices, we don't know. But you can see with Manchester United, there's a clear idea. And this might sort of be what we saw in this game. Because what you're seeing is that their back three essentially are playing the ball pretty long and direct. And they're trying to hit the wingers. A bit like how Vestergaard was always trying to find IU. So I believe that that is what he's trying to do. And I think you have to give credit. When Man United were managed by Ruud van Nistelrooy, they were unbeaten. They were scoring goals and they looked more defensively sound. So I don't think on paper, the system that he's trying to do is necessarily wrong. But what is obviously not working is that that squad was set up for that because Ten Hag wanted them to be a transition team. Whereas we're not really like that, even though we did show the fact that we could transition quite well last season in the Championship. And here you can see, again, I did this in the analysis at the time. You can see their back three, and there's a massive gap between this back three and the rest of their team. But that's because that's their style of play. They were looking to catch Leicester on the high break, look, play the ball nice and direct. And here you go. I mean, oh my God. Vestergaard, because he's back here with these two, I'm telling you that Fernandes is going to win that race. Because it's not his fault. He's just slow. I'm not the fastest either. It's just what happened. So why is Ruud struggling? So in my opinion, look, facts, we all know this. We have a poor squad. But I think this is the big thing. Our threat on transition this year is poor. The loss of Fatawu, I think a few people have said this in chat before, that they felt the season was over as soon as he was out with the ACL. Vardy slows the game down. And I think the problem with Fatawu not being there is because we're using Justin there, is that you don't have to worry about Leicester. When Fatawu comes into the team, do you know what was also noticeable in that game is how much better Mavididi looks. We know this because when they're both on the pitch, it's really terrifying because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Which winger do you get? But at the same time, you've got to look at the numbers. I'm a big fan of El Kanous. I'm a big fan of Buonanotte. But you combine all of those together. I mean, Ayu's outscored them both. That's the reality. And I don't think he's doing enough either. And our defensive midfield without Ndidi is like a sieve. Everything's getting through. Our defense is too porous. And we lack pace and athleticism in key positions. These are all just facts that I'm kind of giving to you. Why is Rude struggling then? Well, here's a point that I've made to Locks many times, right? And I think that this is the reality, because it's not just why is Rude struggling. This, to be totally honest with you, is the reason why, and maybe I'm going to give Jacob Horsfall some more content if he's still listening here. Why has there been the demise of Leicester City? And in my opinion, this is the honest reason why. Because you know what? There's another team down here that's also doing even worse than us. What happened is that there was a new deal signed just after COVID for a ridiculous amount of money. I think it was 7 billion or something like that between all Premier League clubs. And that's why these days you can get things like Nottingham Forest want to sign 28-year-old Johan Wissa for 28 million, or West Ham can put in a 57 million bid for John Duran of Aston Villa. And quite simply, Leicester did not keep up with the signings that were made. I've said this before. When Forest came up, they signed 30 players, but look how much they spent. They spent 300 million, right? I'm taking nothing away from them, right? They're having an amazing season, but they weren't signing. Well, I say they're not signing gems, but to be fair, the Forest fan in there said that they bought Murillo for 9 million and Milenkovic for 15. So I would consider them gems in the current sort of game, but they're still pretty expensive. And my point is we've only spent 122 million. It's noticeable that we played Wolves recently and they slapped us 3-0 at home. But look, there's still a big difference between the two teams. So first and foremost, I don't just want to use it as an excuse. There's plenty more that we could do. And you also have to say as well that some of the signings, Skip, make no sense whatsoever, right? Look, again, I've got a feeling if he's with us next season and he's on a 5-year deal, so he probably will be, that he might be player of the season in the Championship, right? But we don't want to spend 20 million on a player that's going to be good if you get relegated. We need players that are going to keep us up. That was the whole point of this season. Mm-hmm. But my point is just the reality. We did not keep up with the spending that these other teams did. And that's why are we worse than Brighton? Because they spent more than us. Why are we worse than Wolves? Because they spent more than us. Even Everton, who've been acting like a homeless man until their new owners came in. Fulham, who just roasted us. Same thing. Palace, Bournemouth. All these teams have outspent us. And because we haven't spent... Now, why? Where has that money gone? My opinion is it's gone to Seagrave, and if it hasn't gone to Seagrave, perhaps it's going on the new stadium, which isn't funded yet, but it's not going to be cheap. Like Everton as well, you know, for a team as big as them, because they're a bigger team on paper than a lot of these teams, right? But they're just moving into their new stadium next season as well. So perhaps that's what it's there for. Yeah, I know you said here wages, Tony, right? But this actually still is kind of, if you look at it, it's still not like, it's not just that. Comparatively, compared to other clubs, it's just the fact that we are not competing in the same ballpark anymore, and that's why the position has dropped. But fair play, we definitely overpay for it. So okay, I've just been negative basically for over an hour now. So constructively, right, what could we do to maybe have a chance? And look, I don't know if this is a solution, but maybe this could be something that's worth trying, right? Especially given that we've made some signings. So what if we went to a kind of 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1? And I want to give credit to Locks, who floated this idea by me. I think he saw it from someone in the community. Could it work? Maybe it could work, right? As it stands, we don't have a right winger. That's a fact, right? Because Fatau's out for the season. Justin's not a winger. We can see too many goals, and we have a lack of pace with Vestergaard at the back. Now, we've just signed Koulibaly, and he's highly athletic. You can see it from the clips and the video that Jacob's made. And he's fast, and he could probably play the wing-back role. I think Victor Christensen could do that as well. If we played this system, that would be a way that you could get El Khanous and Buonanotte into the same team together, but they wouldn't have to worry so much about defending the wings, which is where Buonanotte always gets caught out. We'd also have Mavididi potentially, who could be there as a rotational option. So you've got people battling for places. Maybe Ayew the same. Right? You could then also, as part of the back three, put Justin or Okoli in next to Vestergaard and Fas to give us more pace at the back and giving us maybe more defensive protection. The only thing I would say is that if we are going to play this system, we sure as fuck would need Ndidi in the team to play it. So you'd notice that he is the one that is back there. So we couldn't do it right now. But I feel that maybe we could try something like that. I mean, where we are right now, the current game plan's not working. I'm not sure that 4-4-2 would work either. It's fair comment. Is Victor Christensen fast enough for that role? You tell me.
Yeah. He is fast. He's not rapid, but he's a fast lad. I think people often don't realize it, but if you look at the goal we conceded against Brighton, the fact that he even makes it back against Yannick Kubaminte, who is the definition of rapid, right? He has Patson Daka level pace. I think it's often undervalued in him, but he definitely has pace, yeah. But I like this idea, right? I think at this point as well, right? You might try and throw something different at the kitchen sink and see if it sticks, because even though we have talked so much about the positives of the system Ruud has implemented, the fact of the matter is we haven't won without Ndidi playing in that system too. So maybe he was the key to it all, or whatever. I want to see us change it up. I want to see us give it a go, because even if it's just for one game, then I'd rather see us get obliterated one game where we try it and it doesn't work than continuing to do the same thing week in, week out, and that doesn't work. So, I mean, at the very least, give it a shot, right?
And
well, the thing is
Rude was very vocal. I was just going to say, Rude was very vocal when he first joined the football club, saying about how he's not a stubborn manager, right? He said that, you know, he of course has a way in his mind that he thinks football should be played, but he's not stubborn enough to stick to that way if it's not working out. So, you know, I mean, we said this about Cooper. You know, Cooper came in and said, we're going to play this type of football, that type of football. Prove it. Prove it now, mate. You know what I mean? Prove that you are willing and you are able to actually change the approach, change the shape, whatever it is, to try and win football games. And if he doesn't do it, if he doesn't change and we keep losing, then it will end in the same way it ended with Cooper. He'll be out the door. That's it.
I mean, unless he walks himself, I genuinely don't think we have the money to sack him. I'm not joking. And I would like to see him in the championship if we go down, but I would assume he would walk then, right? I mean, what we need to right now, in my opinion, is we need to start picking up some points and keep ourselves, like, even if we don't go above the bottom three, if we could just keep up with those just above us. And then when we get someone like Ndidi back, you get your Hermansen back, you get your Ricardo back, and we have that run at the end of the season, that's when something needs to come together for a big winning run. But if we lose sight of getting out of the bottom three within 3, 4, 5 points at maximum, I want to say, then we are in, you know, more shit than we already are. We are already at the bottom, I think, especially less so in terms of our, you know, realistic. If you just look at the table, it's far from unrealistic that we stay up here in terms of the points we need. The problem is the mood in and around anything involving Leicester City is at the lowest of lows, man. It is so rough to be a business. I've had some great days now when I haven't thought about Leicester, because, I mean, that's my reaction. When things get so bad, I know it just breeds negativity and ruins my day. I, you know, disassociate for a few days to remember there are other things in life, right, than sitting here 24/7 being mad about the fact that our football club is being ruined from the top down. I mean, things need to change. There are many things that need to change. But I think the first thing to keep us up is the mood and the environment in and around the club. And how does that change? Well,
I'll tell you what, Andreas, a massive protest outside the ground where everyone shouts at the owners is going to help. No, I'm all for that, by the way. I'm being a bit of a hypocrite there. Just want to bring up some comments, though, which I agree with. This is a really good one from Harder Never. He says, to me, it's just shuffling around the shit. It's the personnel and not the formation, in my opinion. I actually agree, because I think if you look at it, to then go from Steve, he says, Rude has changed it from crap to shit. Is basically, it was bad before and it's bad now. And what's the one common denominator? It is the players. And as Andreas mentioned, it is not a surprise that the two statistical players who are doing the best, Mads Hermansen and Wilfred Ndidi, being out of the team has combined with our demise. And I'd go further than that. It's also not a surprise that Fatawu came into the team. He started tearing up Southampton, tearing up all the teams that he was up against. He does his ACL and he's out there as well. So I think it'd be me jumping or clutching at straws to say he was our third best statistical player, but it looked like he could maybe pull it off. So that's really sad. Look, guys, I was going to say that's actually the end of my analysis, but I like spending time with you guys. So not just for Lux and Andreas, but get all your comments in as well, because, you know, I tend to ramble a lot. But there's so much to talk through. I find it interesting, and it does pose, like, you know, we all love the Football Manager. So, of course, in Football Manager, what you'd probably do is sign these, like, cheap players from South America that come into the team and are secret Messi, right? But this is IRL, in real life. What do you do? That's something that you need to think about. Someone just asked, and I think it's a great question, so I'm just going to bring it up. They said, what are our fixtures by the time that those players come back? So why don't we take a look at that together, shall we?
I think sometime in March is the month when Ricardo comes back, right? And then the problem is for
but look at the fixtures.
Oh my goodness. So March, I mean, I know Man United, I mean...
Now, genuinely, if they don't improve, that game is winnable with Ricardo and Ndidi and Hermansen in. The problem is, I think that's the scariest part to me, honestly. It's not the Ricardo injury Fatawu, right? We know he's out for the season. But it's the Mads Hermansen and Ndidi where you don't know when they're coming back.
Look at April, Doug. This is Man City away, Newcastle at home, Brighton away, Liverpool at home. Okay,
Ruining
then you've
my
got
evening.
Wolves to end. I mean, that's rough. It's after that. It's from the, in my opinion, you'd even go as far as saying is our season will start on the 26th of April. We've got Wolves, Southampton. I mean, that's going to be such a brutal game. We could be down in this one, lads. That is the terrifying
That
reality.
could relegate us. That
Yeah.
could relegate. That game could relegate us. Imagine that. Can you imagine? Oh my god, I can see it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Locks. That, do you know what? And I'm going to say this. I don't know. Actually, we'll have to think. Do you know what? We'll have to front it. We'll have to turn up and do the instant reaction, and it's going to be the most brutal reaction of all time as we get absolutely spammed. Anyway, after that, if we're somehow not down by that, then you've got an even bigger game, Ipswich. Then you end with Bournemouth away, which is a horrible one for the last game of the season. But that's probably when we have a chance, if that's when the players are coming back. Otherwise, as everyone said, it all comes down to the signings. I've been saying that for a long time, and I think that's the problem, is that like without the signings, we don't stand a chance right now. Now, I have seen that they have taken something up with the bank, but I mean, I don't think they can afford to do it with PSR. And the problem is they could already be it could be even worse, to be honest with you. So Jeff says, we could prevent Forest from winning the league. Maybe. Look, do you know what? When we get to that Forest game, I probably will do something for them, because some of their fans have asked me to do an analysis of them. They are very good, but I will say that if you look at the underlying data, for as good as they are getting away with it a little bit. I think, to be fair, they're trying to address it by maybe signing another striker. But it's like, for example, there was a stat where they were 3-0 up at half time with an XG of 0.28. And it's like, that's amazing, but it's unsustainable. And yeah, I agree. It's not them that are sitting down. Of course, we know that it's going to happen. Locks has me dying with the reaction. I mean, that's what I love about Locks, is Locks and Luke. They're ones that, like, if you want to know how the fans are feeling.
And just to make everybody feel even worse, some people might not be bothered about this. I am, but yeah, Ipswich have just signed Julio Enciso from Brighton. So there you go.
Have they? Oh,
yep.
That's a great signing that they've made.
Well, it's just another one, isn't it? It's just another. Yeah. It's just another club strengthening, and we're sat here. Don't worry, guys. We've got a £2 million fullback. It's all good. Have the faith. Come on, man.
Man, that's brutal.
I can't. It's brutal, man. It is brutal. And, when you're in December and things aren't going well, the one hope you have left for the season is the transfer window. And, I'm not saying none of us expected to go out and splash loads and loads and loads of cash, but you would have thought we were going to spend, in my head, mate, I thought 20-30 million quid. It ain't even going to be that. It ain't even going to be that.
I thought that was realistic too, to be honest. I mean, that's why I brought someone up like, Scott Olsen, Mars, these players that could go in and make a difference around that 10 to 15 million pound range. Especially because, again, I think we just need, a few players who can lift the level of the rest of them, because you can see these glimpses of Premier League quality scattered throughout the squad, but we need just a few more players, in my opinion, to give us a chance who will show that on a regular basis.
Mate,
right?
you must have these on to see that Premier League quality is all I can say.
No, but genuinely, right? I mean, remove yourself. Like, you see the Premier League quality in the first half against Crystal Palace. The problem is the fact that it's just not enough quality, right? It's either the players who are shit down on form, like Jamie Vardy, who can't score for the life of him right now, or Mavididi, right, who's missed so many sitters as well during the season. Like, that's the thing that's really letting us down at this point, because while we've managed to still, somehow concede goals, even when we have got the amount of shots down, sadly, my biggest problem right now is the fact that we aren't scoring, and the fact that even when we get it, we create the chance well, and we do well all up until the finish, we can't stick it in the back of the net. You've seen my frustration, Anil, when we've watched the games, yelling, just put it in the back of the net, man. I mean, it can't be that hard, surely, right? And there are many things you'd like to see improved in the squad, but even just with 30 million, man, 2 good players or something could have been possible.
Can I just say one thing, Anil? Because I know me and you have kind of defended the decision about Tom Cannon. We've defended it quite a bit because Luke's been going mad. We've been saying, well, maybe he's not as good as we think he is, or maybe you compared his stats yesterday to Jordan Ayew, right? And Jordan Ayew looked better, really. But the thing is, Anil, think back to 2019 or 2018, Leicester City in the Premier League, mid-table. We needed a winger. And we brought back Harvey Barnes from his loan, and he stuck around. Now, I'm not saying Tom Cannon is as good as Harvey Barnes was. I'm not saying that, right? But we needed a winger. We brought him back. We didn't need to go and buy one. The more I think about it, the more I think he should not be being let go, especially if we cannot improve with the £10 million, because we know we won't be able to improve.
Why is Daka not playing locks? That's what I don't get. Because the thing is that I don't necessarily disagree with that Tom Cannon, but I think if you look at the stats, Daka was a better player than him last season, and Daka has played in the Premier League. So for me, that actually game against Fulham, and I've said it a few times, that's Vardy playing 90 minutes, 3 games in a row. I get it, he's our best finisher at the club, but right now he's not finishing. He couldn't score in a brothel right now. Strikers go through those kind of phases. It's like at least Daka is going to be far. Like I just mentioned it. What is it? It's the athleticism. It's the pace. I mean, that's kind of my suggestion. Is I feel that this team would improve a lot just by putting some pace merchants in there. I think if you put 2 or 3 just fast players in there, like Kyle Walker's made a career out of it for years. He's not the best defender, but he's got pace. So Man City make a mistake. He's the one that gets back. He cleans up the problem, or at least buys them time to defend, and they get back into it. So yeah, listen, I see what you're saying, but I think, guys, you got to wake up and think that, like, if you think Tom Cannon's the answer, I mean, that just shows you what is the question. It's like, you can't expect he's not even in one of the top championship strikers this season. When Barnes was called back, he was literally either the best or second best player in the division that year. He was absolutely outstanding. And even then, he came back and he didn't immediately have the je ne sais quoi. He looked good, but you could still see he was a bit rough.
I think my point is more, at that time, we could have probably got a better winger than Harvey Barnes in the transfer market.
That's true.
But we didn't. And maybe we couldn't at the time. Maybe the funds weren't there, whatever it is. And because the funds weren't there, we brought him back and we used him. And that's my thought, that you just don't know. This is a thing in Nil, isn't it, in football and Duck? Like, it's all hindsight a lot of the time in football. You could keep Tom Cannon around, and in 6 months we're saying, oh, bloody hell, we should have taken the 10 million. Now we're not even going to get that. And it's a nightmare. But on the flip side, he could come into the team. He could score 10 goals. And he could be a part of staying up. You just don't know. But I just, the more I think about it, the more I just decide. I don't think we should be letting him go in this current situation.
As well is the fact that he has already, played for one club in England, right? Playing for Stoke this year. If he plays for us, he can't go out on loan again, unless I believe he goes to somewhere like Sweden or whatever, where the season starts in the new year. There is something about that I can't quite remember. But that's the thing, right? You could take the gamble. Obviously, the stats are, not that great for Tom Cannon, but I think, the stats sometimes don't show the full picture. I think, Tom Cannon has something the rest of the team has been lacking, right? Being clinical in front of goal. But my main point is, if you test him out, let's just say he got to start both the Crystal Palace game and the Fulham game, and he wasn't up to snuff. Like, it was clear he still needed more time to develop. Then he's stuck for the rest of the year. And then maybe he just goes to be number 4 instead of getting the 10 million in, right? And I understand, the will of wanting to see him succeed, or wanting to see him succeed for us as well, because he has done well out on this loan spell in Stoke. The stats, maybe not the stats here, but the stats in terms of his output definitely shows that. It's a difficult point, that one, on Tom Cannon, to be honest, in my opinion. But I agree with Anil. I think we should see more Patson Daka. I mean, Patson Daka, he has his spells of form every now and then, but sadly, it's been ages since we've seen a spell of form from him.
I can feel, mate, this is the one thing I'm going to act like a boomer on, Anil. This is the one subject I'm going to act like a boomer on, is when I look at these, when I look at all the stats, like the pass completion, the progressive passes, the carries, the shot creating action. I look at all of it and I go, we need someone to score goals above anything. And I think Cannon would be a better option, not the answer, but a better option than Daka for scoring goals. I'm convinced. But anyway.
Look, to be fair, we've not seen him, so I couldn't answer that question. But I will say that obviously at the start of the season, Steve Cooper, who, as we know, is the infinite font of all knowledge, decided that he wasn't good enough, and that odds on. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, to be honest with you, though, that is. We keep saying, I mean, that thing here, this makes me cry. We had Lookman for 15 million that spent 20 million on Skip. I mean, to be fair, there's inflation, so Lookman probably would be a bit more expensive. But
that's very short-term inflation, though. But fair enough.
Yeah, I agree. And because even then, so maybe Lookman, 15 million then would be 25 million now. But I mean, he's a player, isn't he? He goes straight into this team, and like the tactic would just be pass it to Lookman. That's how good he would be. So there you go. Anyway, look, maybe we should leave it there. Let's see what happens against Spurs. That Spurs in a bad run of form themselves. They play a high line, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not feeling great about that one. Let's see.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't already, please like the video. Subscribe to Blue Tinted Glasses if you haven't. What's coming up next? Actually, it's very rare that I get to ask this question. But Locks, what's coming up next on Blue Tinted Glasses?
Yeah, Fox's Den tomorrow night, 7 p.m. That will just be very simple, but we need help from the chat. We've done another tier list like we did a couple of weeks ago, and we've got the, completely safe, no worry at all. Then I think the next one is avoid relegation, and then get relegated. So we're going to be going through the teams in the Premier League that are in and around the relegation zone and deciding who we think will go down. And a little spoiler, I think we're all going to say Leicester to go down. So make sure to tune in for that 7 o'clock.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for being us, and we'll see you next time on Blue Tinted Glasses. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Press the button this time round.